Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and here is your detailed morning update on Tropical Cyclone Alfred. Now, remnant energy as it moves north out of the Moreton Bay area and up past Bribie Island and into the Sunshine Coast. Tropical Cyclone Alfred is still a very significant hazard to southeast Queensland and parts of northeastern New South Wales, with the very heavy rainfall expected to continue over the next 48 hours as a result of this tropical cyclone's remnant energy. Anyway, so let's jump straight into the details of Tropical Cyclone Alfred. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. But the details with this cyclone right now, like I said, tropical low status moving out of the Moreton Bay area and into the southern parts of the Sunshine Coast outside of Caloundra. It's now north of Moreton Island actually right now, and you can see in the latest satellite and radar imagery frames it is beginning to make that jog towards the northeast. So again, a very erratic track from Tropical Cyclone Alfred's remnant low at this point, and it's really dragging in quite a lot of rainfall right now into the Brisbane area, especially through the Moreton Bay, and you can see that especially in the latest satellite frames, heaps of very heavy rainfall continuing around the Brisbane area. Last night was a rough night, that's for sure. For details on the landfall and what winds we were talking about, check on the landfall forecast update that came out about 5 hours before this one. There's plenty of detail in that forecast update, but looking forward into this forecast update now, and looking forward at what Tropical Cyclone Alfred is expected to do over the next couple of days. Plenty of rainfall is kind of the main threat at this point here. The wind speeds are still going to be locally damaging along the exposed coastal locations, especially through Moreton Island and North and South Stradbroke Island throughout the remainder of today, and locally damaging wind gusts can be expected as far south as the Gold Coast and Tweed Heads throughout the remainder of today. We'll also see locally damaging wind gusts around the Moreton Bay area north of Redcliffe, where winds are currently averaging about 50 kilometres an hour, gusting to closer to about 70 or 80, through Bribie Island, then north up towards Caloundra and Maroochydore as well, but winds shouldn't be too strong, definitely nothing stronger than 80 or 90 kilometres an hour throughout the remainder of today. And winds around the Brisbane city area have dropped down dramatically from last night as well, where they did peak at about 100 kilometres an hour through the Brisbane city area. Let me know what impacts you received in the comment section down below as well. It certainly played out very much as predicted, that's for sure, this tropical cyclone. In the end, it was kind of a bullseye forecast for a lot of people and a lot of trackers and chasers alike. Same with the Cyclones Oz channel. It did a very good job on the forecast with this system, and it did come through pretty much exactly how we expected it to do between 2 and 1 days ago. So this tropical cyclone is still going to be providing plenty of heavy rainfall over the next couple of days, and let's jump straight into that forecast right now. The reason why I'm skipping straight to the rainfall and not talking about wind speeds is because there's no real need to. Now, the convective forecast models, I believe, does it best with the rainfall forecast, at least over the next couple of days. You can see it's reciprocated very nicely between the what's happening and what the radar imagery is actually showing right now. So again, I'm going to be using the convective forecast models for the next couple of days, which is generally speaking a big no-no for tropical cyclones, but in the case of Tropical Cyclone Alfred, they have done a very good job here. So this is the Axis convective forecast model, calling for the tropical cyclone to swing back into the Queensland coastline momentarily and dragging in that big batch of moisture we're expecting from the southern extremities of the Coral Sea. And for offshore waters from the Sunshine Coast, there's going to be a lot of moisture developing out there again, and as we cross-reference that with the satellite imagery, already plenty of cloud and on the satellite imagery beginning to develop out here, with plenty of thunderstorms here and there out into the Coral Sea developing nicely at this point. That's going to result in some very heavy rainfall getting trapped along the coastline. So again, let's just play this forecast run forward here from the Axis Brisbane convective forecast model. Very heavy falls expected throughout this afternoon and into this evening. The heavy rainfall won't subside out of the Brisbane area until at least midnight tonight, and there'll still be some heavy showers here and there throughout the remainder of Sunday morning. Heavy rainfall expected over the ranges outside of Brisbane and up the Sunshine Coast right through Sunday morning and into early Sunday afternoon, and the rainfall not properly subsiding out towards southeast Queensland until at least tomorrow evening and into early Monday morning rather. There'll be heavy falls widespread across the Brisbane area, especially out towards the Wivenhoe Dam and then further north up towards Gympie. In this mountainous area here, north of the Wivenhoe Dam, as mentioned, up towards Gympie, plenty of rainfall can be expected, and we'll be talking about 24-hour accumulations, so up to about 500 millimetres, which again is a dramatic jump on the rainfall that we have seen over the last couple of days on the forecast, and that's kind of the only discrepancy between what's actually expected to pan out here from Tropical Cyclone Alfred's remnant energy and what the forecast was suggesting a couple of days ago, is that there is now much more rainfall expected outside of the Wivenhoe Dam area and towards the immediate northwest of Brisbane. Brisbane itself also expecting far more rainfall than what the forecast was suggesting a couple of days ago, and in terms of the numbers, huge rainfall accumulations can be expected. So this is on top of rainfall that has already fallen, which for a lot of areas has already been approaching 300 millimetres, and we'll start on the rainfall that has already fallen down into the Gold Coast hinterland area and into southeast Queensland throughout the duration of Tropical Cyclone Alfred. Peak rainfall accumulations have been up to 600 millimetres so far, with not a whole lot now expected. On top of that, 24-hour accumulations in the past 24 hours have been up to about 300 millimetres into parts of the Gold Coast hinterland, especially out towards Mount Tamborine, and rainfall accumulations around the Gold Coast from Tropical Cyclone Alfred's landfall procedures has been about 125 25 millimetres. So down on the Gold Coast, the rainfall has actually been quite a lot lighter than what has actually came through, and that has than what was initially expected. The rainfall has been a lot lighter as it's came through, which has been really good news to the flooding emergency that we were expecting to unfold through the Nerang River and the Coomera Rivers respectively. We were actually thinking that there was going to be a full-blown disaster in those rivers, and with the rainfall setup that we had on the forecast models, there was no reason to believe that there wasn't going to be a flooding emergency throughout the Gold Coast and then further north up towards Coomera and Sanctuary Cove. So it is really, really thankful and really, really lucky that that flooding emergency hasn't really unfolded. That cyclone swing towards the north through Moreton Bay has really saved them from a lot of heartache down there. And same deal into the northeast of New South Wales as well. Whilst they have had some really good accumulations outside of Murray-Willumbah, up to about 600 millimetres over the last couple of days, with a little bit more rainfall still expected to fall there. Again, the rainfall accumulations have been a lot lighter than what was initially expected, and as such, only moderate flooding has unfolded across this part of New South Wales. And whilst major flooding is still possible through the Wilson River flowing down towards Lismore throughout the remainder of today, the flooding emergency that we were expecting to unfold is definitely not looking like it's going to unfold anymore, which again is very good news. However, the same cannot be said, like I said, up into the northeast of Brisbane, north of Ipswich and up towards the Ivanhoe Dam. The rainfall outlook there has really taken a turn for the worst, and between major forecast models, you can see there really is a concerning amount of rainfall expected to come through throughout the remainder of today. Now, normally I don't bet the farm on the accumulations that the Access G3 forecast has to say, just considering that it is certainly one of the more unreliable ones, but considering two-day rainfall accumulations here from steady falls that are going to be funneled ashore, especially through this afternoon and into tomorrow morning and into early tomorrow afternoon, I am starting to believe that these rainfall accumulation numbers here, maybe the 800 millimetres is a little bit excessive, but for the most part, these rainfall accumulation numbers might actually hold a little bit of weight to them. Out towards Ivanhoe Dam area, we could be seeing anywhere between 300 and 500 millimetres of rainfall, and into the mountains as well outside of Brisbane, anywhere between 300 to 600 millimetres looks possible. Further north up through Caboolture and Cromhurst, we could be seeing rainfall accumulations between 3 and 500 millimetres. Further north than that up to about Gympie, rainfall accumulations will start to ease off, and you can be expecting anywhere between 150 up to about 300 millimetres up there, and then north of Gympie, rainfall accumulations should be below 150 millimetres. Still some significant rainfall accumulations though along the Sunshine Coast for Noosa, accumulations up to 150 millimetres, for Maroochydore and Mooloolaba up to about 300 millimetres, and then for Caloundra up to about 350 millimetres can be expected in that area. Bribie Island, peak rainfall accumulations on the southern tip over the next 48 hours could be up to 500 millimetres. Still a lot more rainfall to come from Moreton Island as well, and even North Stradbroke Island. Again, just with the way that this rainfall is going to be coming ashore, it's going to be coming in out of the east, and you can see that heavy band picking up from later on this afternoon, and the real rainfall is not going to pick up until later on this afternoon into early this evening, and that's going to continue through tonight into early tomorrow morning as well, with massive rainfall accumulations expected on the major forecast models. And I mean, between the Eastern Weather and the Access G3 and even the GFS forecast model as well, it's just going to be this funneling band of heavy rainfall moving through the southeast corner of Queensland, and Brisbane is going to cop it. Again, for those locations, we told a couple of days to prepare around the Ipswich and the Brisbane area. If you do live in flood-prone areas, especially through Brisbane, especially through Ipswich and along the Brisbane River as well, then make sure you are ready for a major flooding event. The Bremer River and both the Brisbane and the Bremer Rivers, especially further upstream out towards Ivanhoe Dam for the Brisbane River, and then the Air Force Base outside of Ipswich, some major flooding can be expected in those areas. So again, I do hope that everybody is ready for that, have sandbagged their property and move to higher ground if necessary. Now, considering that those really gnarly tropical cyclone conditions have actually eased off around the Ipswich and the Brisbane area, if you don't mind getting a bit soggy throughout the course of today and you can get access to some sandbags, I strongly advise you do that and continue the preparations for your home, especially if you do live in a really flood-prone area. And if it is safe to do so and you have family further south in Brisbane, down on the Gold Coast or down to especially out towards Toowoomba, I'd recommend getting yourself out there as well. The Gold Coast is going to be a mess, so it's strongly advised you don't go down there, and same deal with Brisbane as well. But if you can get yourself away from a flood-prone area, if that's where you reside in, I strongly advise you doing so throughout the course of this morning before this rainfall really picks up once again, because again, we're really looking at a major flooding event unfolding here for the Brisbane and the Bremer Rivers, and it definitely has been overshadowed by the wind speeds from Tropical Cyclone Alfred by pretty much every tropical cyclone tracker and chaser alike. The winds and the cyclone impact, the historic cyclone impact, have obviously overshadowed the rainfall forecast, and as such, I imagine quite a few people are going to be caught off guard by this. So again, you do have throughout the course of today, if you do live along flood flood-prone areas for the Bremer River and the Brisbane River, especially upstream from Brisbane into more of the western suburbs of Brisbane as well. I do feel like the outgoing storm tide will actually do a really good job at draining Moreton Bay and the rainfall that's already fallen in the Brisbane River, so flooding in the Brisbane metro area, whilst it will still occur and we could be seeing some minor flooding in those areas, I don't think it's going to be at the level required to really inundate a lot of homes and property in those areas, so only minor losses can be expected in the Brisbane area. But again, flood-prone areas around the Brisbane River and the Bremer River, make sure you are prepared, and all the tributaries flowing into the Wivenhoe Dam as well, and then further out around the Ipswich and the Marburg area as well, and even down towards the Logan area, then make sure you are prepared for some really significant rainfall. I repeat, a lot of rainfall coming through later on tonight into early tomorrow morning, and this tropical cyclone's brunt will certainly still be felt until later on tomorrow afternoon, when the rainfall will then finally begin to ease off out of southeast Queensland, and it looks like a return to the cooler, calmer and dry conditions across southeast Queensland for the cleanup, which is going to be extensive, that's for sure, throughout the hours of next week. But yeah, certainly some prettier weather to come. Looking a little bit forward from this weather event here from Tropical Cyclone Alfred, which has been nothing but historic, that's for sure. Let's see if we're going to get some webcam footage through parts of the southeast Queensland especially. I'm very keen to see what the wave heights are looking like around the coastline, but it looks like some of these webcams have been taken offline by the tropical cyclone. No surprises there, that's for sure. But in terms of what the conditions are looking like right now, by just some of these thumbnails and screenshots of some of the glimpses out here, out towards south of Jindaboomba here, you can see some Jimboomba, you can see those river levels really beginning to rise, and these water levels really moving quite fast at this point here. And if you push this back a little bit on the bridge, you can see that the water levels were down around this point here, and then as you push this forward, those water levels really quickly beginning to rise throughout the course of today up towards that white marker. And I imagine the water levels at this river here are expected to get up towards the bridge, and that's just one example here from many around this sort of area across southeast Queensland. Again, these water levels really beginning to rapidly rise, and the real rainfall, like I said, has not started just yet. It's still building offshore at this time, but yeah, plenty more rainfall to come, plenty more impacts from Tropical Cyclone Alfred to come, so do not venture out if you do live in a flood-prone area, unless it is for evacuating or for further preparations and tidying up of your property before the second round of rainfall hits. You do have a few hours, and I do imagine that rainfall will begin to cross the coast later on this afternoon, probably at around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There'll be a further update on it this afternoon, especially as that band begins to build offshore, but there's only going to be 2 updates today. I think cumulatively over the past 7 days, because of Tropical Cyclone Alfred, I've probably got about 22 hours of sleep, so really looking forward to having a little bit of time off today. Still helping with a house moving, so again, it's not really a day of relaxation, but yeah, Tropical Cyclone Alfred absolutely sapping my energy reserves, that's for sure. Anyways, this tropical cyclone is certainly on the way out right now, and its remnant energy is beginning to be dispersed across Moreton Bay and across southeast Queensland in general. In terms of the track forecast of this tropical cyclone, it's not really interesting, moving ashore later on this afternoon and evening, and then being dragged inland through the Sunshine Coast and then out towards south central Queensland as well. It's going to well avoid Toowoomba, that's for sure. Out towards Chinchilla and Miles is where we're expecting this tropical cyclone's remnant energy to track, and we could be seeing some moderate heavy rainfall out there later on tonight as well. So if you do live out towards south central Queensland, a few showers expected here and there, some light rainfall here and there, but the heavier stuff is going to be concentrated further towards the coast. So again, don't get your hopes up for significant rainfall accumulations, that's for sure. And yeah, that rainfall really just dispersing itself over a big trough by the looks of things, which could give way to some strong thunderstorms through tomorrow afternoon across central parts or north central parts of New South Wales, and then a bit of a thunderstorm outbreak again expected throughout Monday afternoon as well across northeastern New South Wales out towards Woolgett and Lightning Ridge, and some significant thunderstorms also possible in towards Tuesday as well. But again, that's talk for another forecast update. This tropical cyclone, it certainly has been a wild one, that's for sure. Tropical Cyclone Alfred has been historic, and it is not over yet. So if you live around the coastline around Moreton Bay, this video has probably sounded a little bit too good to be true, but the conditions certainly not easing off just yet. And whilst this storm doesn't have cyclonic sustained winds, gusts are still in excess of 80 kilometers an hour, which are highly dangerous, so do not venture out just yet. Wait until the all clear, which I imagine will happen in about 2 or 3 hours from this tropical cyclone as it begins to head further inland. But it still does have a robust eye wall here, and you can see on the northern part of Moreton Island here up towards the Heath Island Lagoon, you can see plenty of, Amity Point actually, the north parts of Moreton Island. Oh no, Amity Point is on Stradbroke Island. The map just decided to cark it for a second there. But yeah, again, on the northern part of Moreton Island, there are still some strong winds whipping around from the northeast at this time, so play it safe and play it steady over there. And still some strong winds streaming in with rain bands for the Stradbroke Islands as well, north of the Gold Coast, and those winds now really beginning to ease off, but still, it certainly is quite rough across southeast Queensland at this time, so make sure you are playing it safe from this tropical cyclone. Still some pretty significant impacts to come, and like I said, that rainfall really is going to be quite problematic as we get set later on tonight. You can see the Cape Morton Lighthouse here actually still approaching cyclonic winds. It's very close to being a full-blown tropical cyclone still, however it is still beginning to weaken. Those winds, certainly the Sunshine Coast, get a few more impacts than it probably did bargain for initially, and it will feel like a tropical cyclone at least for brief periods of time around Bribie Island as this tropical low makes itself or approaches the coastline once again. But again, that is all from me today. I do really have really enjoyed tracking Tropical Cyclone Alfred, and if you have enjoyed these videos and found them informative or helpful, then please consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel as well, nearing in on 40,000 followers. So again, thank you so much for all of the recent support. It has been much appreciated. And again, thank you to all of the nice comments as well, and the amount of donations that people have been sending through as well. I try and keep this service as low cost as possible for everybody, so everybody has access to these videos. So by all means, feel free to send through a YouTube donation. It is really appreciated, and it will only go back into the Cyclones Oz channel as well, so think of it as an investment. But for the most part, I am completely fine with everybody watching these videos free of charge. It is I hope that it is a really good service for some of these people across southeast Queensland and just across Australia in general. So again, thank you so much for all of the recent support on the channel. It has been much appreciated, and of course the support goes out to the channel sponsors as well. Their names are on screen right now, and again, I could not run the show about them, and their support is much appreciated as well. But that is all from me this morning, and I'll catch you all in the afternoon in the next storm. Goodbye.